Welcome everyone to the Smart Seeds Future Energy Showcase for 2021. It is an absolute pleasure to be your host today. My name is Nick Ioannidis, one of the facilitators for Smart Seeds and an electrical engineer, project manager and innovation consultant here at GHD Digital. This event is many months in the making, so it's wonderful to have you join us today. Very soon, we will celebrate with our 6 amazing teams who will present their innovative and creative solutions to some complex challenges in the extremely important spaces of sustainability, renewable energy, and the environment. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which we all meet today, whose sovereignty has never been ceded. For me, in Sydney, it is the Bidjigal people of the Darug Nation. I pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be here with us today. I'd like to reiterate the significance of being a true custodians of the land, underpinning their relationship with nature and the environment, working with it, not against it, treating it with utmost respect, knowingly realizing their critical place and role that they played in maintaining a healthy and diverse ecosystem for thousands and thousands of years. On the precipice of an unforgiving future filled with the outcomes of human-induced climate change, we must all take action and responsibility in adopting this mindset and take credence from this history and change our own relationship with the environment before it is too late and while we still can, while we still have hope. And on that note, today is all about celebrating the achievements of this year's first national cohort for Smart Seeds. For the uninitiated, Smart Seeds is a design-led innovation program with the main goal to help diverse teams create solutions to complex problems that can have lasting community benefit. Since Smart Seeds began, there have been 40 programs run in 14 cities over the world over the last 9 years. This is also the first all-virtual Australia-wide program being supported and led by GHD Digital. Earlier this year, we asked leading thinkers what are some of the critical challenges Australia faces today in the energy sector. Many of these leaders join us as guests tonight, so thank you for your contribution. Your insights have been incorporated into many of the outcomes that you will see here tonight from the teams. At the start of their journey, our Smart Seeds participants were complete strangers, thrown together from across the country and even Tokyo. Even though they all came from different disciplines and different organizations, they quickly formed a tight bond, embracing some healthy team competitiveness for good measure and that inspiring Olympic spirit. Through this adventure, they interrogated the challenges through research and interviews to understand who is impacted and why. Based on all insights gathered, teams then developed ideas for a possible solution by brainstorming, prototyping, and refining before converging on their chosen solution. And finally, they condensed all this into a short video to share their story with you, the audience. On a personal note, our 6 teams that you're about to meet have impressed me immensely with their agility, adaptability, and can-do attitude, especially in dealing with a total virtual setting and multiple lockdowns. As a former Smart Seeds participant myself, I know just how excited and perhaps a little nervous they all are right now to share their ideas with you. Here's what you can expect today. Each team will present their pitch in a 2-minute video, followed by feedback and questions from the judges, whom I will introduce shortly. Then there will be time for the judges to choose a winning team, and for you, the audience, to vote for the pitch that most resonates with you for the People's Choice Award. We're expecting this to be close, perhaps as close as the width of an electron. The 6 presentations today are designed to spark a bigger conversation about decarbonisation and making a green future a more likely reality. Please do share any encouraging comments or messages of support in the chat to the right of the video feed. Now, please sit back, relax, and get ready to have your neurons tickled and heartbeat racing as the teams prepare to step up to the starting block. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sarah Fitzgerald, who is GHD's Australian Future Energy Lead, to provide some more context on why we created this particular Smart Seeds program and why innovation in the energy sector is so important right now. Welcome, Sarah, and thank you again for joining us.
Fantastic. Thanks for that introduction, Nick, and thanks for persevering with us for the interesting start to the meeting. How exciting to join you today to celebrate all the team's hard work, to celebrate their learnings, and to be inspired by their presentations. I'm really looking forward to it. When we talk about future energy, we often talk about the rapid pace of change and about workforce skills of the future and how we all need to become super resilient and we need to be great problem solvers and really sort of hone our influencing skills to support this rapid change. The Smart Seeds Future Energy program that's run in the last 9 weeks has forced our participants to rapidly acquire and demonstrate many of these sort of future skills, and particularly with a number of teams in lockdown. So it's against this backdrop of rapid environmental, economic and societal change that GHD is on the urgent quest to help our clients realise a low carbon future. Future Energy is our commitment to lead this important transition. We are playing our role in the future of affordable, reliable, secure and low carbon energy for our clients, their customers, but most importantly for our communities. The presentations we will shortly see cover a wide gambit of the challenges facing Australia. Security, reliability, affordability and accessibility are all vital elements of an effective energy system. So as ensuring communities are equipped to understand and embrace a hydrogen economy, and that authentic circular economies are no longer a novel idea, but part of business as usual. Whether it's high-density urban centre, a remote community, an off-grid mine site, an emission-intensive industrial plant, or a wastewater asset, all of these require the right balance of low-carbon energy ingredients to meet a sub-zero goal. How the team solve these challenges will be revealed shortly. The media landscape feels really heavy to me at the moment. I, like many of you, I imagine, read the fairly sombre IPCC report. And for me, it was really easy to feel overwhelmed and sort of hopeless by the situation. But today I'm choosing and really looking forward to being inspired and uplifted, not only by the team's presentations, but also by a generation of emerging leaders committed to accelerating the energy transition and imagining a vibrant future. Finally, sincere thanks to all our sponsors for joining us on this partnership. And good luck, teams.
Thank you very much for the insightful comments, Sarah. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our 3 esteemed judges for this evening. Simone Concha, who is the Executive Manager for Sustainability at Western Sydney Airport and recently was celebrated as a Green Star champion for her vision and dedication towards the transformation of the built environment to achieve a net zero future. We also have Professor Peter Ashworth, who is a director at the Andrew N. Liveris Academy for Innovation and Leadership and is the chair of Sustainable Energy Futures at the University of Queensland. And finally, we have Dr. Alan Finkel, who is a neuroscientist, engineer and entrepreneur. He was Australia's chief scientist from 2016 to 2020, during which time he led the National Electricity Market Review, the development of the National Hydrogen Strategy, and the panel that advised the Australian Government on the 2020 Low Emissions Technology Roadmap. It is amazing to have such high caliber judges here with us today, and it is a huge testament to the high caliber of the extremely talented young professionals and future leaders in the teams this afternoon. Alan, you clearly need no further introduction. It is such a treat to have you all here as part of the showcase. Can you please tell us what you are looking forward to seeing from the teams this evening?
Well, first, let me thank you, Nick and Sarah, for introducing us, and on behalf of my fellow judges, Simone and Peter, the opportunity to do this. And to the contestants, I do want to say you're lucky to be working for a company like GHD that has put together an extraordinary innovation program like this. It's got one purpose, which is to help build your capabilities. Win or lose today, you will be the better for it. And you are lucky to be working on a fantastic topic. The future of energy is going to be the biggest endeavour that planet Earth has ever seen. It's an exciting decade that we're entering at the moment. Really pleased to be on the judges panel with Simone and Peter. And I've been asked to say what the judges are looking for. It occurs to me it's a bit late to tell you now. We should have done this, 9 weeks ago. My personal specialty is detecting what I call BS, you know what I mean? I have BS detection antenna. Simone's specialty is systems and operations. She'll want to know, will your proposal work? Peter Ashworth, she'll want to know that your solution will appeal to communities and governments alike. But in general, all we're looking for is the perfect combination of ambition, innovation, plausibility, profitability, and public good. Sound easy? Well, of course, that's close to impossible, but do your best. Above all, what we want is for you to take a deep breath and have fun. We're on your side. You'll earn bonus points for smiling during your presentation. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. Sounds like everyone here is excited to kick off. I know I am. So now, please, enough from me and let's get started. Our first team tonight, SolarBlocks, face the challenge around circular economy for future energy. Please welcome Tina Cooley, Will Finnis, Kieran O'Donnell, Sabrina Moya, and Kasem Rakane and Tanya Salvarinov. Tanya, please tell us about SolarBlocks.
Thanks, Nick, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you our solution, SolarBlocks Simplifying Infrastructure. Our team is diverse in discipline and location, and it has been such a joy to work together over the past few months. We celebrated promotions, endured continuous lockdowns, and met over Teams each other's fur babies. What we have produced in our challenge solution and pitch video is nothing short of hard work and team collaboration. Our challenge was to consider how might we create a circular economy for future energy infrastructure with componentry that is designed to be repurposed. SolarBlocks Simplifying Infrastructure is seeking strategic partnerships with manufacturers to advance the design of our product. SolarBlocks rethinks the design of generic solar PVs to allow components to be taken apart as easily as they can be put together. Through this modular design, we will see an increased end-of-life cycle and improved recyclability at the end of the life itself. I hope you enjoy.
Australia is leading the way with the highest uptake of solar PV installation in the world. But what happens to all these solar panels at the end of their lives? Australia can expect 100,000 tonnes of solar waste by 2035 and 800,000 tonnes by 2050. Although the components of solar panels are inherently recyclable, they are not made to be unmade. The use of glue makes recycling difficult, energy intensive and expensive. In Australia, only 17% of solar panel materials are reclaimed and the rest are sent to landfill. There is a better way. The SolarBlocks panel is inspired by Lego with an interlocking modular design. The components are assembled within a sealed container to prevent damage and corrosion without affecting performance or efficiency. And just like Lego, the components can be easily pulled apart at the end of the panel's life. The high-value components can be reused in new solar panels, and other componentry can be recycled or repurposed into any number of new products. The SolarBlocks design will increase reuse of componentry, improve recyclability, decrease dependence on raw materials, reduce solar waste to landfill, and incentivise a recycling industry. We are looking to connect with the solar manufacturing industry to support research and development for the SolarBlocks design. This opportunity to accelerate the future circular economy in solar infrastructure is not to be wasted.
Well, thank you so much, Team SolarBlocks. Simone, very keen to hear your thoughts on this.
Well done to that team. I really loved that it was inspired by Lego. And I'm curious for you to tell me a little bit more. I think there's so many great ideas in that. But please tell me a little bit more about what the next steps might be.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Simone. I think that's a really great question. I'm really glad you asked it because it's something that we've been doing a lot of work around. I might defer to Kasem, who's been doing a lot of thinking around that roadmap and next steps towards commercializing Solublox's product. Kasem?
Thanks for your question. Thanks everyone for being here as well, for giving us the opportunity to present to you such a wonderful solution. Our solution is actually on a short-term view. We would like to envisage on our journey, starting by partnering with the Australian PV industry through investing in R&D and feasibility studies of the solution. On a midterm view, we would like to leverage on this relationship with the Australian PV industry to have a direct connection with manufacturers, whether they're local or overseas, to start building samples of the Solublox panels and trialing them on residential scales based on a pilot program. The outcome of this pilot program will determine how quickly we are to scale up commercially. On a long-term view, we would like to see the solution a contributor in creating a flexible infrastructure for the future energy industry that could also be expanded to other industries equally in order to realize value creation and to provide opportunities for materials to be recovered and reutilized easily in some way, shape, or form. We see the importance of considering this from the onset rather than in the hindsight at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And another
I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yes, that really answered it very well. And I also wonder, are there any limitations to where and how you think Solublox can be used? And to be a little more specific in my question, is there a difference between these Solublox being used in cities and regional or isolated areas?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I think we've been thinking a lot about the right market to deploy this for those early movers, and then what that looks like more over the medium and long term. So I guess what we've sort of identified is really in residential markets, a lot less price sensitive, and consumers are more conscious and willing to make those decisions on choosing sustainable products that provide other value-added benefits, rather than in the commercial sector where it is perhaps a little bit more price sensitive. But I think we do see, with this simple and modularized design, that over the longer term, there is more of an opportunity to be cost competitive with incumbent technologies. So I think maybe to your question as to where we see those markets, we've probably thought about it more in terms of residential versus commercial, being in that short-term versus longer-term opportunity.
Excellent. They're really great answers. And, I hope that you do take the next steps with this. I think the idea is fantastic. And I really love the circularity that you can see in this. If I may just ask one final question, and it's a little bit to do with your learning process. Can you talk to me a little bit about how important diversity was in your team for coming up with this innovative idea?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I might have first crack at this and then defer to the team to add some more comments. I think certainly it's a bit of an unfamiliar process when you're thrown into a team right at the start of things and you haven't met your team members. We're all from different parts of Australia and from different backgrounds and different organisations and subsectors within the future energy space. So I think that diversity has been really important for a couple of reasons. One of them is diversity in thinking, and that's really led to quite constructive discussion over the last 9 weeks and really helped to identify the broad depth of potential options that we could pursue, but then really land on a strong idea that we believe has the most impact and the most potential to drive forward. So I think that diversity has really been good for our thinking. But yeah, might defer to the group if there's any other comments.
I think you covered it well.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Judges, are there any other questions from you?
Solar panels are getting so cheap. How do you deal with the handling? When you're disassembling it, I'm just wondering whether you need something like a deposit tax on soft drink bottles equivalent for the solar panels. We've got no time, so you just have to give me a short answer.
Yeah, look, we totally recognise that panel is the major risk is our cost and the price of it. And when you're using greener materials and want to have a longer life cycle, that does come at a premium. But we believe that will pay dividends longer term down the track when they don't have to replace their panels as often or can replace the parts of the panel that are breaking down. And that's the whole point of the modular design. So in the short term, it is a risk and it is a premium to pay, but we believe that will be an ultimate benefit in the longer term for our customers.
I'd like to add to that as well that we've got a trade-off between the higher cost of waste management for the solar PV and the design coming at a premium. So literally having that design coming early to the market will reduce that cost dramatically down the track if we adopt it early and we have that in place.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your great answers and your amazing creativity. That's it for Q&A. And thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Team SolarBlocks and the judges. Truly a fascinating concept. Now, our second team is ready. Team Trek includes Kira Dernian, Jessica Heinrich, Nathan Stones, Kevin Trong, and Christine Chang. And together, they tackle the challenge area of decarbonisation of transportation. Christine, the virtual stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're Team Say No to Carbs. Our challenge was to tackle the question of how might we accelerate the transition of decarbonised energy for intermodal transport hubs. And when we interviewed the relevant stakeholders, we found that everyone wants to decarbonise, but the problem is there just isn't enough incentive or funding for companies to put money and resources into a solution. So our solution to this problem was to create transport renewable energy certificates, which will be based on a really similar model to the existing renewable energy certificates. We think that this is a really groundbreaking concept, and we've seen it work in another industry, and there's great potential here for the transport industry. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and we hope you enjoy our pitch.
Our world has been in a state of emergency. Our carbon footprint has been heavy.
Every year, the global freight industry consumes 300 million tonnes of fuel. 30% of global transport CO2 emissions come from road freight in particular. There is a growing demand to decarbonise, but the transition can be challenging. The freight industry now finds itself in a revolutionary space with the opportunity to be a leader by transitioning to zero emissions.
We will create an online platform that functions as a market, producing transport renewable energy certificates that act as a currency for successfully reducing carbon emissions and can be purchased and traded between companies.
We believe by finding synergy in the sustainability goals of policymakers, freight providers, retailers and consumers, and by creating a market incentive and competitive tension, we can accelerate the decarbonisation of transport in the freight industry.
By uniting all key stakeholders on one platform, there will be recognition and reward for reducing carbon emissions, therefore accelerating the industry's transition and enabling positive change.
This solution requires various skill sets. As a multidisciplinary team, we can approach this problem from every angle, integrating insights from industry experts and key stakeholders.
We have a multi-year plan which involves developing the certificates to create an incentive and prototyping the online platform with feedback from the industry, then scaling the platform to a point where the certificates can be traded, similar to shares on a share market.
To do this, we need your support and funding to develop the platform and initiate the rollout across the industry. Let's work together to decarbonise the freight industry and tread a little lighter.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Christine and Team Trek. Simone, love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you, team. That's such an interesting idea. And, working for an airport, transport emissions are very, very close to my heart and at the forefront of my thinking all the time. So this is a particularly interesting one for me. I'd really like to know a little bit more about how did you get to choose this solution? What was the process that you went through and why this solution?
Yes, so that's a really great question. So when we first got posed the question of how to decarbonize intermodal transport hubs, we started out by speaking to different stakeholders. And when we did that, and we watched a few different interviews from people like the CEO of Woolies and logistics companies, it was really clear that everyone is on the same page and they're all aware that we need to decarbonize, but there's just no financial incentive right now, because at the end of the day, the company's first and foremost focus is on profit and making a margin and delivering quickly for their customers. But increasingly, we are also seeing more of a demand from everyday consumers for large corporations to decarbonize, and they're the key clients of our logistics companies. So we're starting to see a bit of a convergence of the stakeholders' interests. So the consumers are driving the change, but it's the retailers who will really force it back through the supply chain. And sorry, at this point, I'll just pass it to Jess to talk a little bit more about the solution and how we got there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Christine. So yeah, obviously that gave us an understanding of the serious demand for decarbonisation in the industry, but it also showed that there's such an opportunity for everyone to play a part. So when we started to look closer at the freight industry specifically, we found that we couldn't focus solely on the decarbonisation of intermodal hubs, as the majority of carbon emissions come from the actual road freight. And so as we were discussing our solution, we came to the conclusion that by developing a solution that targeted road freight, united all of the key stakeholders, and enabled the supply chain to meet these consumer and retailer demands to become carbon neutral, was the most commercially viable solution for the freight industry to accelerate their transition to decarbonisation without driving to the bottom and collapsing the industry.
That's great. I'm really glad that you started with the stakeholders. That's such an important part of the process. Alan and Peter, I'd like to invite you to ask a question if you have one.
I'm just not sure what drives the participation. I think, by the way, I think it's a great idea and I haven't heard it from anybody, and it could truly be developed into something. With the renewable energy target, it was driven by a mandate on the industry that the retailers had to buy and retire a certain percentage of their electricity delivered at an increasing percentage every year, and it was compulsory. How do you get people to actively participate in a voluntary scheme? Because there'll be buyers and sellers, there's got to be some profit to be made or compulsion.
That's a really great question, and definitely backing from the government and having something like a renewable energy target is something that I think is very crucial to get the solution off the ground. To talk a little bit more about the next steps in the rollout and what might be involved in that, I'll defer it to Kira.
Sure, Christine, thank you. So Alan, I suppose the next step for us really would be to get the initial funding to conduct a feasibility study and collate, I suppose, inputs from various stakeholders across the intermodal and freight industry. Our challenge champion, John Eccles, has actually already been in touch with some folk from ARENA, and they have already indicated that this is something that they would be very interested in getting a pitch on. So that's actually rather exciting for us. So our next step would be securing some funding there to get the feasibility study started. I suppose we want our solution to work in a very similar fashion to the REC system. So those who are online and haven't really heard what REC means, it actually stands for a Renewable Energy Certificate. So this would really drive this on. We would need support from the government and the clean energy regulator. At the conceptual level at the moment, we thought that we would have targets like the renewable energy target. So that would go a long way in providing that, I suppose, additional incentive for the industry. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and well done for the interest from ARENA. That's excellent.
Yeah, very exciting.
It's a very quick question. I'm impressed with the depth of, you've done some stakeholder consultation. I suppose leading on from Alan's question, what was the response to the people that you did talk with and engage around the concept from the industry end user point of view? Did you get some feedback on that?
Hi, so when we spoke to the different stakeholders, we were actually talking to them more about what sort of solutions they currently have for decarbonisation and what be helpful in helping them decarbonise. We haven't had the opportunity to test this this particular solution with the stakeholders yet, but that would be the next step in our study, and it would be really interesting to get some more industry feedback and then incorporate the feedback into our solution.
Great. Thank you. They're excellent answers.
Thank you so much, Team Trek, for the amazing presentation, and thanks again to the judges. Our third team is ready to kick off. Team H2-4-All includes Yuko Fukuma, Johan Karchevsky, Jessica Kitchen, Mo Timraz, and William Dye. And together, they tackle the challenge area around hydrogen energy. William, take it away.
Thanks, Nick. And good evening, all. I'm absolutely humbled to be here today representing our organization, H2-4-All. I'm joined by my colleagues from all over the globe. We've got Jess from Perth, Mo, Jovan, and myself. We're from Melbourne, and we're even lucky enough to have Yuko joining us from Tokyo in Japan. Now, if I started talking to you about hydrogen energy, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What's the second thing? Well, actually, we found out that most Aussies aren't even aware of its existence. So they're not aware of its uses, its safety, its benefits, nothing at all. And we really think that's a problem, because it's a problem for Mother Earth. And because of that, it's a problem for our futures. So I invite you guys to just see our point of view for a couple of minutes today.
Hydrogen energy technology is fast becoming a critical player in global efforts to reach net zero emissions and reduce the impacts of climate change. Though most Australians are showing greater concern about climate change and a greater interest in renewable technologies, surveys by the Australian Renewable Energy Agency found 80% of people are unaware of the benefits of hydrogen technology, and 13% are even fearful with concerns around safety. Participants from this survey also felt it was the government's responsibility to educate the public on new technologies. Education and targeted messaging will pave the way for major investments to go ahead, with the risk of community backlash and delays caused by misconception and misinterpretations greatly minimised. To make this a reality, a multi-platform advertising campaign led by the federal government is required. The campaign will be designed to educate the general public on what the new technology is, the opportunity it brings, and the associated environmental and safety impacts. The strategy involves broadcasting a nationwide TV and social media advertisement campaign for 5 months that captures the public's attention. This will also link to a government-funded website where reliable and trustworthy information will be presented in an easy-to-digest manner. More targeted campaigning will also equip allied industry professionals with the right facts and messaging to create everyday champions for change to positively influence community perception.
Learnings from the Japanese experience demonstrate establishing a well-coordinated collaboration between the government, industry, and public is proven to strengthen the nation's position within a global hydrogen industry.
Educating the general public is a much-needed step towards improving perception and uptake of the hydrogen technology. We need our government to execute this strategy so we can bring all Australians on this exciting journey with us.
Wow, thank you, William and team H2-4-All. Alan, really keen to hear your thoughts and feedback on this one.
What you've got there is something very, very novel, and I congratulate you for your, let me call it, lateral thinking. It's actually terrific to see. Makes me feel like a failure. I've been trying to talk to the Australian public for a couple of years now about the importance of hydrogen, but you're right. The vast majority of people don't know it, and if they've heard of it, they have no real understanding of where it fits in. So it's a good idea. A couple of questions from me, then I'll ask my colleagues. When is the right time to go out with an advertising campaign? I think it's probably too early at the moment. The industry's building up. There will be a right time. I don't know what the right time is. Have you thought about timing?
Yeah, g'day Alan and all. So we have definitely thought about this, and basically through our research and our judgment, as soon as possible. And the reason for that being is that we all know that there's a hydrogen technology race happening. So whoever secures this novel industry can secure a great market with Japan, South Korea, and many of those countries that use this technology already. So we envisage this ad campaign, if it were to happen in the next year, then that'll be a great step in then the government and industry starting to spend more money on, invest more into this technology, and the public there'll be less public backlash, more acceptance through this understanding. So that's why 1 year is sort of a good time, because then that opens the next year or the next 2 years into major investment, keeping in mind that we want to be front runners in this race.
Okay, well, that leads me to my next question. So hearing what you just said, Jovan, you're saying as soon as possible, and I can understand the logic of what you just said, but sometimes linking to a special event or a special happening can make the advertising have higher impact. And so I wanted to ask Yuko from Japan, the Tokyo Olympics was billed as the Hydrogen Olympics, and there were 100 hydrogen buses, and I think that the athlete accommodation used hydrogen for heating or hydrogen for cooking, I'm not sure exactly what. How effective was the messaging of hydrogen in Tokyo?
Thank you, Alan. This is Yuko speaking. Thank you for asking this question. Yes, actually, yes, the hydrogen fuel was used for the Olympic Games. And in Tokyo, there are already, like 70 or 100 hydrogen buses already exist. And I think that this Olympic game was a great momentum for the Japanese government and especially industry companies to promote hydrogen energy in public. And it was really accelerating. But I also would like to mention that the Japanese government already promoted hydrogen energy since 2013 or 2014. So they have been continuously keeping the promotion for more than 7 or 8 years. So the government, such a long period of the government supporting and funding is really important for the country to be in a position, later position in a hydrogen industry. And
thank you. I'd like to ask Peter Ashworth for a question.
Yes, thank you. Very quickly, I noted that you looked at the research and people said the government, and that's your choice of the person or the group to run the advertising. How do you think levels of trust from the Australian public or the choice of government as the key sort of arbiter of this what are your thoughts on that? Can you tell me a little bit more about how you perceive and why you chose government, I suppose, for this?
Yeah, I'll pass this one on to Mo to answer.
Hi. So basically, we strongly believe that the education role or educating the public, the role is a role for the government and the research institutions, because we can, once the government takes the big role or the big part in educating the public, we will ensure that adequate information would be disseminated early in the development of the industry and would have an important influence in building the overall acceptance of the hydrogen industry within the public or the society.
Yeah, and I'll just finish that one off. We did see that there could be trust issues with industry trying to sell their own products, so a conflict of interest. And also, we just thought the federal government, they're in charge of major investments. They're in charge of letting the public and all of the nation know what's happening next and why. And also, we believe they're the most trustworthy source to talk to the public.
Okay, we'll have to wrap at that point. Thank you so much for your presentation. Very clever thinking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, team H2For All and the judges for very insightful comments. And wow, halfway down, 3 teams down and 3 to go. And so far, I'm truly blown away. And that means not implying any pressure for the remaining 3 teams. Now, our 4th team, Team Liquidify, tackled the challenge area of water sector energy transition. And they comprise of Matthew Bond, Jonathan Kissick, Magenta Paris, Sid Shrestha, and Dennis Lee. Dennis, please explain your solution.
Thank you, Nick. Wastewater. Sounds like a load of poo, doesn't it? But what if we could turn those poos into profits? Australian water utilities are changing their business models to achieve net zero emissions targets while maintaining good value for customers. They are looking for renewable energy and resources recovery solutions to power the water infrastructure for our growing population. Wastewater to energy systems are playing a major part of the strategy. But in our interviews with stakeholders, we realized that finding the right people to develop these systems isn't easy. So we've made a platform to help build quality partnerships and turn wastewater into a valuable commodity. It will crowdsource data to create feasible projects and deliver better community outcomes. Take the plunge and share your data on Liquidify.
Climate change is a challenge of our generation. To avert disaster, a step change is required. We must eliminate emissions from every imaginable human activity. In Australian cities, wastewater treatment accounts for nearly 40% of total energy used for water supply. This is estimated to grow up to 200% by 2030. So how can we support increased wastewater treatment and energy recovery to combat climate change?
Introducing Liquidify, an open data platform to transform the way we think about wastewater. Liquidify will empower water utilities to achieve their net zero targets by engaging and collaborating with key stakeholders. Water utilities will share their open data to get feedback on wastewater to energy project ideas. Businesses can then help to develop feasible solutions. And ESG investors can identify opportunities to finance. Government and regulatory bodies would review projects with a collaborative approach, and when the project is firmed up, customers can engage with water utilities to achieve better community outcomes. This marketplace of ideas will turn wastewater from an underutilised resource into a valuable commodity.
Working in partnership with the water utilities, Liquidify will launch in one state before rollout across Australia and the world. It can even be expanded beyond wastewater to energy projects. We think the water industry needs a shake-up. We want water utilities to take the plunge and turn their poos into profits. Liquidify. Open data, opening opportunities.
Thank you, Dennis and Team Liquidify, for a very fluid pitch. Alan, very keen to hear your thoughts on this one too.
Again, a totally novel approach to a really significant problem. A couple of questions. You're putting it to us that there's not enough communication in the industry, and that you discovered that when you went out and spoke to them. I just wonder about why there's a lack of communication and you feel that you need to come in and solve it. I mean, all the companies have an ambition. They've got access to the internet. What are you going to give them in say, slightly more tangible terms? What are you going to give them that they can't get through normal means?
Great question, Alan, and thank you for it. I'm going to direct this one to Sid and see, he will be able to discuss more about how to create successful projects and the key takeaways that we want out of this platform.
Thanks, Dennis and Alan, for the question. I think there is, as you said, Alan, a lot of data sharing that's already happening, but I believe it happens in silos. So companies generally only talk to a couple of companies that they know or that they've heard of. So the objective with this platform is you put your data, open it up to the wider world, and then there's a more possibility that you will get companies you've never heard of, new startups that come up with innovative solutions that allow you to, do these projects which you may not have thought is possible. So it's basically opens up possibilities by opening up the problem to the wider world.
And you said that you would go from one state to Australia and then global. So that's a longitudinal expansion. Would you expand laterally into other industries?
Yes, Alan, great question. And yeah, we've seen this crowdsourcing platform work in various situations. Obviously, the water industry is very collaborative as it is at the moment, but we think that it's definitely an opportunity. You could expand it to energy sector and to basically anywhere else that requires crowdsourced solutions and feedback on whether a project is feasible or not. And from there, going through the regulatory process, getting community feedback and turning into a success.
How much accessible energy is there in wastewater? I mean, it's pretty dilute. Are there tangible projects that you know of that could provide a significant return for money invested?
Yes, great question, Alan. And I'll direct this one to Magenta. We had a chat with Barwon Water, one of the stakeholders, and they were able to give us an example of some of their projects.
Yeah, definitely. So specifically with our conversations with people in industry, including Barwon Water, there are a couple of examples. So when we think of this platform and some of the outputs and inputs which goes into it, there's a couple of different avenues which I guess many different stakeholders can benefit from. So for example, some inputs would be taking trade waste from an external entity which is trying to get rid of their trade waste, which they would have to spend a lot of money to get rid of through business as usual methods. So taking that waste, which is highly concentrated and is, I guess, energy dense from another entity, which would normally just be disposed of, that kind of is turned into a certain commodity because we're producing energy out at the end of the total process. This energy can then be used by water utilities themselves, so reducing their electrical bill at the end of the day, which they can also then use some of that fuel to sell to other entities as well. Outside of that, though, there are also waste outputs which come from the waste to energy process, which can then be sold onto agricultural entities, which can then also use that and benefit kind of in more of like a circular economy kind of way as well. So yeah, we definitely feel that there are definitely examples. So Barwon Water have got a organics recycling initiative which kind of uses something similar. So we believe it's definitely would be able to, yeah.
Right, Magenta, we're short of time. Simone and Peter, just nod, shake your head. Okay, we're done then. So thank you so much. We look forward to one day seeing something like that actually on the market. It'd be wonderful.
Thank you again, Team Liquidify, and to the judges for their comments. Now, our fifth team, called eHub Solutions, tackled the challenge area around energy systems integration, and they include Elise Cameron, Inga Domland, Paul Eadzies, Stephen Turner, and Ellie Dean. Ellie, the virtual stage is yours.
Thanks, Nick. So about 8 weeks ago, our team was presented with the question, how might we support remote and isolated communities to transition quickly to a self-reliant, stable and equitable decarbonised energy system? Over 500,000 people live in remote regions of Australia. Our team has chosen to focus on communities that are geographically and socioeconomically disadvantaged, that are off-grid and rely on diesel generation for power, and are large enough to sustain a small school or community centre. Many previous programs have attempted to build renewable energy infrastructure for communities such as these, but have had issues with long-term community acceptance, maintenance, and monitoring. We believe that the key differentiating feature of our solution is a deliberate focus on engagement with the communities, not just to power them, but to empower them, and to build a connection between clean energy generation and education, training, employment, and ongoing economic benefits for the whole community. At eHub Solutions, we bring together expertise from public agency, energy retailer and generator, engineering, design and consulting, and construction to connect these remote communities with investment and sustainable technologies. So without further ado, we present to you the eHub.
The world's climate is changing rapidly, causing extreme temperatures and leading to natural disasters such as heat waves, bushfires, drought, and intense storms. Remote off-grid communities are particularly vulnerable to the damaging effects of climate change.
There are many small and remote off-grid communities all across Australia that are supply power by diesel generation only. But what if there was a way that we could switch that off and bring these communities an integrated and sustainable power alternative for the future, clean and simple?
Reliable and cost-effective alternatives to diesel power exist. We propose the transition of community halls or schools into eHubs. eHubs are integrated community hubs with renewable energy generation and a grid-forming battery. Energy-efficient technologies for temperature control, lighting and appliances will be deployed in eHubs as well. eHubs are enablers for future technologies like electric vehicles. The community's energy generation and consumption will be displayed via dashboards in the eHubs, empowering people to make an informed decision about their energy consumption. Finally, eHubs provide opportunities for education, training and future employment.
The eHub will deliver a reduction in noise pollution, cleaner air with reduced carbon emissions, greater community engagement and resilience, all while providing cheaper and more reliable energy. We're developing our pilot eHub solution and seeking your support and sponsorship for an ambitious rollout in 2023. Join us on the journey towards equal, clean energy for all Australians.
eHub Solutions. Connected, clean communities.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love the concept. And obviously I see remote communities being very important as we think about this transition and anything to move off diesel. As someone who grew up in the country, and I remember visiting, waiting for the windmill to go so we could all go have our showers and lights and then having to turn on generators. There's a whole lot in there. What do you think would be the biggest challenge to move this ahead within a specific community? What were the things that you came up against when you were thinking about this as a solution?
Thanks for your question. So we interviewed some experts in the industry and found really that there are a lot of barriers with community engagement. Inga, did you have any, I might pass this question to you to talk about strategies for community engagement.
Yeah, so what we found, one thing that came about was the availability of land and which land can be used for solar farms, which land is available, and the communication with the community leaders. That was one aspect that we thought might be breaking the ice, like that we could identify a spokesperson that could then integrate with the community for collaboration. Other aspects was, of course, a spatial difference where these communities are. And that's how we then came up with this rollout for collaboration between government and with installers and also the communities.
Thanks for that. So building on that, and the engagement is one part. How do you translate that technical ownership and buy-in? Obviously, if they're very remote and you're suggesting what I could see as solar battery options and then educating, how do you make that happen within a community that's probably quite small? Just some of your thoughts when you were thinking about that implementation.
Yeah, thanks. So there's definitely pathways to sort of integrate the the energy system into the community. So we've chosen schools as an obvious place to start educating the youngsters, but also there's a piece there in illustrating the ongoing benefits to the rest of the community. So opportunities for training to actually hand over the maintenance and the running of these systems to members of the community, provide employment, training options, and yeah, from that, hopefully economic benefits sort of run through the rest of the community. Does anyone else from the team have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's the full solution helps get the community on board. So there's a grid forming battery which allows the sort of diesel to be turned off, and that sort of reduces a lot of the noise pollution and SOx and NOx emissions. So it's sort of that full package of solutions while bundling it up with a community-based solution, which could be a school or community hall or other sort of aspects of community.
Okay, Alan or Simone, did you have a question? I thought you might.
I've got a quick one. You focused on using the school halls, and one obvious reason is it becomes the centre for educating the communities. But going back to Peter's original question, does it also solve some of the barrier problems? You've got a large roof, you've got an agreed space, you're not needing to get community permission because that school hall's already there. In other words, are you getting multiple benefits from doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think reusing that existing piece of infrastructure that's already central to a community will make this a lot easier. Also provides opportunities to, I suppose, use those spaces for other community benefits. So providing, say, for example, a space to go in an emergency. Anyone else from the team want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that a bit. So obviously there's the infrastructure cost of solar, and like you suggest, Alan, that a central place that is easier to install on, protect, is absolutely a bonus. And it's that centralized area where we can start to bring the community in, and once they see that central piece of infrastructure, it makes the next step much easier to then build on that with other energy efficiency products or other forms of generation.
Thank you for that. That's all the time we've got for now. So I really enjoyed your presentation, and good luck with the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, eHub Solutions, for an amazing pitch, and again to the judges for their feedback. Now, last but not least, our sixth and final team tonight, MyGrid, consists of Pooja Modi, Damien Malvana, Edward Carr, Ben Carell, and Victoria Mills. Together, they tackled the challenge area around energy security and reliability. And for their pitch, we'll be starting with their video first.
The frequency and severity of natural disasters in Australia is increasing. These events can leave rural communities without power for weeks at a time. How can we reimagine energy infrastructure to increase the resilience of regional communities? After consulting with impacted communities, emergency response teams, and energy suppliers, we have discovered the need for remote communities to have their own power supply and distribution network to reduce the impact of power losses.
Introducing MyGrid, an infrastructure collaboration delivering affordable microgrid solutions for vulnerable regional communities. The program includes community batteries, underground power lines, rooftop solar, medium-scale renewables, access to low-cost finance, regulatory expertise, and risk assessment.
By offering a suite of options to participating towns, MyGrid unlocks economies of scale. facilitating the transition of existing single feeder vulnerable grids to flexible, secure and renewably powered microgrids.
To make this idea a reality, we need connections within the emergency services, utilities, governments, renewable developers and finance providers. From there, we'll engage a vulnerable community for a pilot scale project. With your endorsement, we can reimagine energy infrastructure and protect high-risk rural communities.
Hello everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Pooja Modi. The team decided to identify who was most vulnerable to power disruptions during natural disasters. We conducted interviews with stakeholders within the energy supply chain and emergency services, which led us to the conclusion that regional towns suffered more than those in populated areas. We found that these towns have little control over their own energy infrastructure. Many of these people are fiercely independent, yet rely on a single feeder, which, if disrupted, can leave them without power and basic services for days or weeks. This led us to the idea for MyGrid. It combines a variety of microgrid-based technologies. It makes those technologies accessible and allows communities to own them as part of increasing and encouraging independence. MyGrid is about increasing resilience to natural disasters, encouraging collaboration between regional towns and suppliers, and lowering barriers for adoption of new technology. I would now like to invite the judges to ask us questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to jump in, Nick. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I have a PhD student looking at exactly this right now, building resilience from disasters. So I'm sure she'd love to talk more and hear about your thinking. I'm interested though, I understand sort of taking away from that single line coming in, but how does the project improve the overall resilience? What's different about what you're offering a community in this way? What are the unique things that you're offering here?
Thank you for the question. So essentially, we are providing the town with multiple sources of power in the case of the grid supply being lost. So for example, by utilising underground cables to critical infrastructure such as supermarkets, hospitals, etc., we reduce the risk of the loss of electrical supply to these facilities because overhead poles are often damaged during disasters. We know that underground cables can be expensive, which is why we want to utilise them only for services that the town are considered critical. We also have a community backup specifically for these facilities. And we also want to encourage residents to install their own solar as well as batteries. And they would be sized for their household load, meaning that they have more control over how much electricity would be available to them in an emergency.
I'm always interested in the integration of tech into society and community. So I guess I am similar to the last group. I'm really interested in what do you see would be the biggest challenge to make this a success for a community and help build their resilience?
I think there are a few challenges for us to overcome. I think it'll be hard to include people that might not own their homes, prioritising towns based on the needs of the town versus the wants of the town. But I think the biggest challenge is getting funding allocation from government. A simple way to demonstrate the risk and convince government that MyGrid is valuable is to put numbers on costs and benefits. Although we can quantify costs to replace or repair electrical infrastructure, it's much harder to quantify the pain for towns that lose power, comms, refrigeration, healthcare, schooling, etc. Including funding from emergency response budgets, private sponsorships, bulk discounts, and the like will help reduce this additional government funding required and hopefully make it a bit easier to secure some funding.
So just building on that, is there, I mean, it sounds like in some ways there's a financial value proposition for communities to think about getting on board. When you start to quantify some of those, do you think it always will have to come from government to make something like this happen? Because in my mind, it's not always the best way to start a project. Have you thought about that from the point of view of what that looks like? And then I might go to the other judges if we've got time.
Yeah, hi Peter. I think I'll touch on that question. because obviously funding from federal and state governments is probably a big part of this solution. But we also believe that our proposed accessible low-cost finance option for house owners and electricity users can provide tools to allow the user to take control of their own electricity with repayments. They end up being about the same costs as of their power bills as they pay back the asset. Obviously, after that, it'll be very low cost. We also found that speaking to residents who were impacted by the recent heavy weather in the outer eastern suburbs of Melbourne, that they would be happy to pay a little bit more for electricity, knowing that they were either paying back an asset owned by themselves or a community, or something was being done to guarantee supply, aka underground power cables. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you. I just want to see if one of the other judges would like to jump in. Simone?
Yeah, I was interested in whether you think there's a minimum size under which this would no longer be cost effective. Or to put it differently, is, what size of community would this be best suited to?
That's not something I've thought of personally, but not really. I guess the larger the community, the easier it is to pay for things. Obviously, if we've all got a shared feeder and there's more of us, we can pay for it more easily. I suppose with smaller communities that are of higher risk, that's where we'll need some assistance from federal and state governments to help out with funding. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, team. I think that's all the time we've got. I'm going to hand back to Nick. Thank you very much and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team MyGrid, for that amazing pitch. And again, thanks to the judges for their insightful comments. Wow, wow, wow. Judges, you have truly such a tough decision to make in only a few short minutes. So we're sending you away to the green room to get going and deliberating between you. Now, while the judges are discussing their best choice, it's time for you, the audience, to vote, where you get to decide the winner of the People's Choice Award. You should now see a poll to the right of the live stream window where you can select the pitch that most resonated with you and vote for them for the People's Choice Award. If you are viewing this stream in full screen, you might need to close it in order to see the poll. And in the meantime, I'd like to also introduce and play a short video clip from Tej Gitter, who is the Future Energy Global Leader here at GHD, who sends a message of support from all the way in Canada.
Hello, Smart Seeds participants. My name is Tej Gitter, and I am talking to you today from a place called Waterloo in the province of Ontario. I'm GHD's global leader for future energy, and what I mean by future energy is GHD is taking very seriously the challenge of climate change and actively pushing for a decarbonized future in the energy space across the entire globe. Obviously, this is a very, very big challenge for all of us. For me, it's a very personal challenge as well. I have 4 young children who are all in this house as we speak. It's really important for me to leave a better world for them. So I'm very, very willing to put a lot of my time, my effort, and my passion into this challenge. But I do wish you all the best with the program, and I hope you come up with some wonderful concepts and really take a lot out of this program on such an important topic. All the best to you.
The world. Now, while the judges are finishing their intense deliberations, I'd like to give a big thanks to our awesome participating organizations. These are ARENA, Pacific Hydro, Origin, Powercore, Water Corporation, Territory Generation, Barron Water, CleanCo, Western Power, Labo, Metro Trains Melbourne, Lumia, Kawasaki Heavy Industries, Icon Water, and GHD, and thank them for their ongoing support. Now, I'd love to welcome 2 of our amazing participants to the stage, Pooja Modi from Origin Energy and Will Furness from ARENA, to have a short Q&A with the audience, with myself for the audience. Pooja and Will, thank you very much for joining me. after your amazing pitches, I'm sure you're both feeling very proud of what you and your teams have accomplished. I'd love to hear from both of you. What has been the most important thing that you've developed from your time in the Smart Seeds program?
I'll jump in. So yeah, I think one of the key takeaways, Nick, for me, was really this process is all about embracing the ambiguity and using that divergent thinking that we know is quite central to human-centered design. I think all of the teams can be quite proud of the solutions that they've come forward with today to quite challenging societal issues that we're going to be dealing with over the next 20 or 30 years. And I think for me, the temptation is often to choose a solution or a pathway that's quite familiar to myself. And so embracing ambiguity is definitely something that I'll look to take forward with me.
I don't know how to top that answer, actually. Having said that, I really enjoyed the Pitching Ideas Lab. I think the development of storytelling canvas and storyboarding, it was quite unique to the program. So it was high up there in what I'll take away.
Awesome. So Pooja, would that be a part of the experience that you think most would contribute to the way you work in future?
Yeah, certainly. The overall process, the framework, and just gaining the skills that would allow me to actually pitch ideas and influence change going forward within my organization, be that a small idea or a big idea. And
awesome, thank you. Will, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. I think this whole experience with interacting in quite a diverse team, but then bring it all together with a pitch at the end is quite an experience and great exposure, I think, for probably all of the participants within the call. I think one of the other things that I've really enjoyed as well about this program is working on challenges which are not part of our core work, and so for me that was working in the circular economy space, and that was kind of an area that I didn't really know too much about, if I'm perfectly honest with you, when we came into this challenge. But really over time we've been able to sort of dive deep into the research and understand that a little bit better. And I think that's definitely something that I'll be keeping in the back of my mind when we look to solutions moving forward.
Brilliant. That's really great to hear. Just another question before we wrap up. As a team, how did you find the way you supported each other and deal with all these disruptions?
I'll go first this time. So I love this question. I'm so proud of the team. We set up a WhatsApp group right at the start, and if a particular team member was unable to attend the meetings, then we would just brief them later, and that's how we dealt, with disruptions.
Awesome. Will, did you take a different approach?
Yeah, I think it's part of the world that we're in now, isn't it? It's something that we've all had to get used to over the last sort of 18 months or so is this quite disrupted environment that we're in. And I think it was quite interesting. It was almost my my source of news throughout the process, given that we've got Tanya's based over in Perth, Kasem's in Darwin, Tina's down in Melbourne. We're sort of all over Australia, and so as well as the typical weather update that you get when you jump on these calls, I think it was also interesting getting the lockdown updates as well across the country. But yeah, keeping up to date with different people's circumstances throughout these tough times has definitely been something that we've had to build into the way that we work with each other. I think that's definitely a key takeaway.
Yeah, awesome. That's really insightful stuff. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from each of you if you could pick one pitch that most impacted and resonated with you, and besides your own, because that might be a little bit of cheating, which team would you say?
Great question. I'll jump in first on this one. I feel slightly conflicted here, but I think the one that I'll pull out that kind of stuck out to me was Liquidify. The reason that I chose that one as like one that sparked my interest was because they've picked up on another really key macro trend that's happening, which is this trend of data and data management. And I think where we can find that intersection between data and future energy, I think that'll be a really interesting intersection moving forward.
And Pooja, did you have?
Well, I'm obviously biased towards ours. Having said that, Sorry, apologies. I was saying I'm obviously biased towards the solution that we had to present. But having said that, I loved the solar Lego blocks idea as to how that can be pieced together and dismantled. Best of luck to you. But
Awesome.
it was quite
But no, it's been a pleasure to have both you, Will, and Pooja with me today. But I've just heard from my imaginary earpiece that we have the judges ready to come board to announce their amazing decisions. So, teams, get ready. Alan, do we have a winner?
We do have a winner, Nick. Would you like me to tell you who it is?
Yes, please.
The winner is TREC, the transportation, the decarbonisation of transport.
Thank you. That's really great news. It's very unexpected. We were talking on a group chat while we were watching the presentation, and we had so many great solutions from everyone.
Nick, do you want me to? Nick, shall I elaborate or?
Yes, love to hear your thoughts on why.
Okay, so TREC team, a few things, and this is me sharing with you the collective impression of my fellow judges and myself. Several things. First of all, we really felt that you reached out to the stakeholder group well and articulated back to us what you learned from them. You're also addressing just a huge sector. After electricity, the transport sector is now becoming the second largest emitter across the economy. So transport is huge and needs to be dealt with somehow. We also thought it was a clever application or transference of thinking that's being used in other sectors and not being, to the best of my knowledge, thought of in relation to the transportation sector. In fact, I've never heard of it anywhere in the world. If it works, it could be a world first, which is great. And you obviously were able to capture the interests of the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, at least to the level that they were willing to talk to you. And that shows a sign of a lot of promise. So congratulations from my fellow judges, Simone and Peter and myself.
Brilliant. A huge, massive congratulations to Team TREC, who are the Judges' Choice winner for this year's Future Energy Showcase. Now, I can see that the votes have been coming in for the People's Choice Award, and they have been closed and tallied. And Sarah, I have the envelope with the People's Choice winner right here for you. So please, love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Nick, through the magic of television. The People's Choice, how exciting, is not the same team. So good to see that the people have a different interest. I think anything that is likened to Lego is bound to be successful. So congratulations, Solar Blocks, for being the people's choice. And I think the concept that probably resonated with a lot of people, and certainly with me, was made to be unmade. So that concept of actually thinking about future life when you're designing is sings to most engineers, I imagine. Congratulations.
I'll jump in and just say thanks so much on behalf of Solar Blocks. We are so thrilled, and as a team have worked really, really hard to be here. So we just want to thank our organisations for supporting us along the journey, and our mentor, Natalie Ambrasso, and our champion, our challenge champion, Henry Anning. So without them as well, we wouldn't have arrived to this moment. So yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Well, that was amazing. Big congratulations to Solar Blocks for the People's Choice winner. Hugely deserved to both teams, but in my eyes, all teams are winners tonight. So you've done amazingly, and I'm sure everyone in the audience tonight has had such an amazing experience. Again, I'd like to thank you, the judges, for being involved, all the participating organizations, the mentors and collaborators, and a huge thank you to each of our amazing participants tonight who have been brilliant. Thank you to the audience for this fantastic showcase, which I've really enjoyed, and I hope you have too. And please do reach out and get in touch with us, or visit our Smart Seeds website if you would like to learn more about the program or connect with any of the teams tonight.
Nick, quickly, just to finish, on behalf of the judges, I didn't really say before, we thought they were all excellent presentations. They were very professional, well thought through. Really, any one of them could have been considered as our choice. But we had to make a choice,
Tough choice. It's a tough choice.
Trick it was.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Alan, Peter, and Simone again for your involvement. And thanks again to the audience. Wish you all the best and have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us.